in, everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is Coast to Coast. We got our panel here today. How's it going, gentlemen?
It's going.
I'm doing wonderful. It's starting to flurry outside here. I heard
Nice.
that there was, about 5 inches in Green Bay.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's funny. We've been talking a lot about Green Bay lately because, I hate to bring up this story again, but they're going on the opposite side now where this YouTuber, solicited his fans via a GoFundMe to get to the game.
Okay.
And I have done that once. Like I did that once a couple years ago, and it did not bode well. Like it
Didn't land well.
It's something that I was kind of told that, hey, you should try to do this and see what happens. You take so many pictures, I'd be willing to bet that people will start to actually do that. The problem with the people that take the pictures with me is that they don't always follow me. They just take the picture and they post the picture, and that's that. I don't get tagged in it or whatever. So a lot of those people aren't going to see it, and only the haters seem to see it. So I learned that the hard way. I was like, okay, now I got to go a different route. If I want to go to these games, I have to go get sponsorships. So, and there was a story out there saying the same thing. Like he, if his show was any good, he would have had sponsors do that rather than regular people spend the money, like just his everyday fans. We don't ask for money here. You know what I mean? So that's kind of that thought process.
Turn it down. Cash App at. No.
Yeah, give us stars. Give us something. You know what I mean? It's what we get 50 cents per star, I guess. But ultimately, so they actually are starting to turn a little bit on him because not on that video, what you don't see is what led up to that, how he was engaging with that guy beforehand. This guy's lost his job, and maybe rightly so. You know what I mean? Listen, no, I don't think nobody deserves to be spoken to that way, but if he would have called her an idiot, she's an idiot because they didn't score the touchdown. Is it as bad?
I think if the verbiage was different in just about any way, it wouldn't have been the way that it went.
Just like, I mean, the thing that he stated was like, you don't and in the air, you know what I mean? Like that statement in itself was vulgar. You know what I mean? It's just like, listen, dude, I understand that whatever, but is that how you talk to a woman? You have a daughter. Is that how you want your daughter spoken to?
Right.
Like you'd be furious. And then the guy standing next to him going, not knowing what to do at all, not being able to say, hey, chill, dude. It's okay. Like anything could have happened to be able to make that better in general. But it's going back on the opposite side now with the guy from Green Bay, who's not from Green Bay. He's from Pennsylvania, and he's a Green Bay Packers fan. And it's just like he's an hour from the stadium, which puts him in Lancaster. You know what I mean? So it's
gotcha.
I'm like, okay, I get it now. He baited this guy. And you're not seeing the bait part.
No. The video always comes up short, right? Like that. It's never what instigates it. That being said, in the land of cell phones and cameras,
you can't do that.
Do that.
So what I am saying, and the reason why I'm even bringing this up now, is that be careful, guys, because listen, LA's got a whole bunch of Hollywood people. And they got a whole bunch of equipment to be able to do this. You see a pin on somebody, you got to expect it's a camera. And it's going to be all over the place. And I tell you, like, it's going to be one of those things. If somebody starts engaging me that way, I am just going to call security. Be like, listen, I think this guy's, clickbaiting me. You know what I mean? I think that he's got something going on here, and get him out of here, because I become a target. I become a big target. Yeah. Even though I am known for not doing that stuff. You know what I mean? They're going to do everything they can.
Yeah, it only takes one, right? I mean, it's like the video that came out with Kelsey, right? The guy was badgering him for a while, and then he finally got to the spot where he's like, "No," right, and throws his phone, whatever. That's not Kelsey, right? The
No,
thing you've ever seen
no.
about
In fact, ESPN, what told him, you don't have to apologize.
yeah,
In fact, we almost prefer you don't.
yeah,
Mhm.
But he felt he needed to. And
yeah,
I know that firsthand. That came right from that horse's mouth,
yeah.
because we
Well,
talked
but
about it a little bit.
that's my point. Is some of that baiting, right? Even
Right.
guys that that's not their personality. Eventually, people can get to you,
Yeah.
and
Well, and
so
ultimately, the video happened to show well enough that he was being baited.
yes,
Mhm.
You know what I mean? If they only showed the SmackDown with no volume, you have no idea. You can assume, but have no idea.
yep,
So, truth of the matter is that guy is not unable to sue because he would lose. Because in Pennsylvania, specifically in Pennsylvania, it's at fault.
yep,
Actually, that whole situation would, like, Kelsey would have been at fault at a certain point. But the
sure.
realistic part of that is that he becomes at fault at a very small amount.
Yeah, the breaking the phone, he'd be at fault for that.
Mhm.
Right.
Right. So I mean, yeah, I mean, there's elements of it that he falls into, but if someone's going at you, especially because I mean, there's video of it, right? Like, he's sitting there chirping at Kelsey the whole way, and that's where videos like this. Now, again, I don't excuse what the guy came back with at all, but the videos always start after whatever BS got it started,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
So that being said, again, in the land of camera phones and all of that, you
It's
can't.
funny how I wish we could see how she celebrated and how they celebrated the touchdown,
Sure.
because that's what occurred. Let's see how you celebrate the touchdown. Did she turn around and engage him? Because that's kind of what I suspect occurred. That she was like, yeah, 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 like in his face.
Could be. Could be. Yeah, I mean,
But we don't.
and it's funny because other phones were out, right? Like
Mhm.
at this point, you can't go anywhere without a million phones being out recording all the time, right? So I would bet at some point we're going to see a different angle of this situation.
Yeah.
Right. And a longer version.
Yes. Yes.
And it might be the fact that I mean, she doesn't look to me like that she would be super engaging. However,
No,
clickbait is clickbait,
it is.
and that could possibly be. He wrote, I want to go to the belly of the beast. I need to, I'm not afraid of what's going to happen over here. You know what I mean? And then he's sweet as pie and not even willing to switch spots. That was the
Well,
other part.
he
That
wanted
was
the camera angle.
right.
So, yeah, you have to imagine there was engagement before. Like, I don't think anybody sees that video and's like, that was the first interaction of the day.
Yeah.
Like,
Definitely not.
I'm sure there was chirping back and forth. I'm sure it escalated over time. And
I mean,
maybe,
that was it. That was late in the third quarter or middle third quarter. So
that's my point is, that escalated throughout the game. And, a lot of people maybe aren't as self-aware because, for you and me and Stat Guy, it can directly affect what we do for a living.
Yeah.
Pop off that way. So even if we wanted to, we can't respond.
Mhm.
That's where to protect your own brand, you're like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just going to like go walk to the bar and get away from the situation. Right. Which ultimately is probably what should have happened anyway. But
what also really bothers me, and I'm not going to take the side of this guy in any stretch. However, nobody, zero people deserve to call him or his place of business because of what he did. Zero, including me, somebody who's like as righteous as I could try to be at these games. Nobody deserves to call his business. You don't want to do business with this company. Most people weren't doing business with this company.
That's
Most people were just calling to say, you need to fire this guy. Rah, 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 rah. I do nothing wrong ever in my life, and you got to do what I say. That's kind of, and I can't.
How did that go again?
And that's literally what is also very frustrating. Now I understand. Hey, listen,
it's
the
the
moment
same.
that this becomes very public,
Yeah.
he worked in a business that requires him to be very, like he can't do that. He can't do that at all. And
Mhm.
as she mentioned earlier, there's a moral clause typically. Um,
Yep.
that moral clause, I mean, he didn't get arrested. So this is
Yeah.
still third party. So even though it's vile and vulgar, um, and the fact that so many Philadelphians are up in arms about this, but um, it's just I'm more frustrated about all of the happenings that happened around this as well,
Yeah.
that
Because
maybe were undeserved.
because no offense to you, because obviously you're like in the Philly sports world all the time. But Philadelphia Eagles fans and Philadelphia fans have always had kind of that reputation that they're very rude fans, obviously, and that's a lot of what the media has had to say about it. Like I know plenty of Philadelphia fans that aren't rude, but now that you get this out in the public eye, now that you see this like on somebody's phone, now it's getting uploaded. That gives the media all that more extra reason to say how bad Philadelphia fans are, when in reality that's not the truth. Because you
Hey,
look at
let's
you, you look at you,
let's
you're around everybody. You don't care if it's a visiting team. You don't care if it's a visit, whatever. Like you'll go to visiting stadiums. You'll take pictures with visiting fans or whatever. Like you're the definition of what a Philly sports fan should be. But yet the media likes to put in the public eye that Philadelphia fans are so rude to visitor fans all the time.
It's every situation, right? Like everyone needs a heel, and the media likes to paint Philly that way.
Yeah.
Hey, and interestingly enough, it's so funny how the media darlings, Kansas City, have had deaths at their stadium.
And they never get talked about unless you're in
Never
Kansas City.
gets mentioned.
Unless you're in
That
Kansas City.
49ers fans fight with everybody, including themselves,
Yep.
all the time.
Yep.
Every week.
Yep.
There are massive fights at 49ers games. Nary a mention. Yeah, I mean and they did use my picture. And it's so funny because the moment they use my picture, I get there's a flood of people saying, out of all the pictures you could use,
That's not the
you're
one you
using
choose.
the one guy who doesn't curse.
Yeah.
He's always friendly to fans. He's always respectful. He's always doing all that. So I love the fact that they use me. You know what I mean? It makes things so ridiculous because of it. Because it's like, that they didn't do their homework. This
Mhm.
is somebody who is trying to just write a story for clickbait.
Mhm.
And that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so every time I see my picture as the picture they use, as, hey, this is, the Eagles have the worst fan base as voted by other fans. I have heard so many other times, like
Mhm.
Washington fans, as we came out and we lost. And I'm congratulations to making the playoffs. It's awesome to see that you guys are back here. Maybe we'll get to see each other in the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun when that occurs. And they're like, man, shut up, because you're ruining what I want to think about a Philadelphia fan.
Yeah.
Because I'm changing the narrative. And I live this all the time. I hear this all the time, that I'm like, you make me have to think differently from what I've learned about Philadelphia fans. That's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. And like I said, when these things happen, like it happens, I am, all that work goes out the window because the media is going to do what the media does. That went viral because you want to know why? because, and I'll tell you, it's Dallas Cowboys fans
Mhm.
that do it because they can't talk about anything else. They can flap their gums. If anybody ever became a part of the Facebook page, NFC East Trash Talk,
Mm.
you
Okay.
would see the idiocracy
Oh, I have
of
one of those for the
other
NFC.
teams. They don't even know how to banter anymore because they're so angry about the fact that the Eagles have been good for so long. And they're like, well, you got the Dallas Cowboys fans say, well, we got 5 rings. You have the Giants fans saying, well, you ain't the best one in the division. You got to go after Washington. And you got Washington fans that all of a sudden showed back up after a 60-year hiatus saying, hey, it's like you guys stink and we are going to win. And because they don't even know how to banter because they're just bad. They're just bad at it. They come up with these idiot takes. And you know what? The worst part about it is that Eagles fans engage. Like, why engage? Why bother? Like, I start writing stuff down. I'm like, no. I'm not going to. I am not going to be take part in the idiocracy of this. You know what I mean? It's stupid talk from stupid people. And I'm just, again, clickbait, clickbait, clickbait.
Yep.
So and I don't understand. It just bothers me that it's always the media that pushes this. I'm not poking your heart. That's not you, Jason. That's not you, Jay. It's like I said, this is you probably see the NFC East trash talk. I'm like, it is so ridiculous. And it's the same 5 people talking all the time.
That's like the NFC North trash talk page that I'm a part of. Like, all of a sudden, Detroit Lions fans have come out of the woodwork to start talking trash this year, and it's just like, where have you been the last 100 years when your team has sucked? Like, now you want to just randomly show up when you've had a 2-year run with Dan Campbell?
Right. Well, but they are starting to show up, and they're paying.
They are.
They are paying. I tell you, there's something to be said when you are paying $1,000 to get into the game just to get into the game.
Yeah.
It's like they are not used to this, and they all want a piece of this history.
Like,
God bless them for that.
Like, I can't take anything away from them because they are very loyal fans. When you look at how bad that Lions organization has been for how long it has been that bad, and yet they may not have showed up to the games as much as they are now, just because the stadium was never kind of on like the season ticket waiting list that they have now. But they were still supporting the team with merchandise. They were still supporting the team the way that you would expect a championship and a winning organization to do. But now it's just gone to that next level because now people actually want to go to the games. They actually want to be seen at the game, celebrating what's going on.
Right. And listen, out of all the fan bases that I know of, the Lions probably have the most super fans that get dressed up and do like that. They have like,
I'd say Lions, Browns, and Raiders because the dog pound obviously in Cleveland, you're gonna have all the super fans there, and then when the Raiders,
black hole for sure.
Shout out to my man Willie.
And then the black hole when
big
they were in
dog.
Vegas. Like, I think the Raiders, Browns, and Lions have the most, but obviously with the black hole and the dog pound, I think those two have the most just because they specifically dress up like that to sit in that section.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel like that since the move to Vegas, that's changed.
Yeah, not anymore, but
there isn't as strong a showing as there used to be. And every fan base has got a collection of super fans. So let's not say hey, this
Do you have a section in Philly that's like named something like that, or is it more so just you kind of sit wherever?
We do not have any one specific section.
Okay.
That's called that.
We have one called the Hawk's Nest.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You have the Hawk's Nest. Minnesota, I don't think has one. I don't think Lambeau has one. I don't think Detroit has one either. Oh yeah, Detroit's got the Lions Den now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's over in the one corner.
Yeah, the corner where the Lions come out of the tunnel.
Yeah, so and I know a few people that actually sit over there. I'm friends with a lot of the Detroit super fans. Like they're one of my closest fan bases that I talk to during the season, and like I said, I'm really excited for them that they're getting this. I mean, think about being a Detroit Lions fan 10 years ago. 15 years ago.
Right.
I think it was 20 years ago. They didn't win a game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's been sadness, 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 nonstop.
Especially
Yeah,
when
you
you
have
have,
Lomas Brown. Then you have Lomas Brown saying that he guarantees a playoff win, and the Eagles go in there and score 55 points on them.
and like the sad part with the Detroit too is like they had arguably one of the best running backs in NFL history for 8 or 9 years when that team was actually still doing really well.
Along with one of the best wide receivers possibly in NFL,
Yeah,
arguably.
Kelvin Johnson. But like when Barry Sanders was in Detroit, that's when the Lions were kind of in their glory days of the 90s because that's when they were consistently making the playoffs. The moment Barry Sanders retires, that team went to complete trash for the next decade. They get Stafford, they get Kelvin Johnson, they have a nice 5-6 year run of success where they make the playoffs a couple of years in that stretch, and then once Kelvin Johnson leaves, the franchise just takes a complete nosedive to where they go 0-16, and they slowly got to climb themselves back up to where they are now.
And that was again because of another Lion. You know, he was the general manager, and he was just so bad.
Mm-hmm.
He was so horrible as a general manager, and it was a shame. But that's part of this. You know what I mean? That's part of having, dealing with the ebbs and flows of being a NFL franchise. I mean, there are, imagine being from Duval County. You know what I mean? You get a couple of years, where things look great. You think you're going to have the coach, and then he stops and starts dancing with, college students. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to get the Super Bowl winning coach, and he can't make it to the playoffs with this team. And it's,
That was kind of the one team that I thought was taking the corner 2 years ago, was when Jacksonville made the playoffs, and then they had that big come from behind win against the Chargers in the first round of the playoffs before they lost the second round. Like, that was the one team in the AFC that I thought was not only taking a turn, but like that one team where I thought, like, hey, this team is in a good enough position where they might be able to contend with the Chiefs when you look at the salary cap space they had and just the pieces, but all of a sudden now it's gone completely the opposite direction.
And then go backwards to Houston. Think about the mess that was just 6 years ago. And they bring in the guy from Penn State. Like, he's the one that solved the Penn State problem. Let's bring him in because he can change our franchise around. And he just about ruined it. Like, destroyed it forever almost.
Yeah.
So it's across the board that there are litters of stories.
Well, I mean, it was the Chip Kelly NFL experience, right? Like, he tried to destroy
the Eagles.
Yeah, no,
and he almost did.
Like, he dismantled that team
for nothing. Nothing. Got rid of Shady. Got rid of Deshaun Jackson. And what did Shady do? He only went off to win a ring. What did Deshaun Jackson do? Every time he played us, he burnt us.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like somebody like, hey, I want to play with some Legos, grabs your set and smashes it, and then's like, you know what, never mind, I'm bored, and leaves.
Yeah. So it was just, and thank God that they took care of him the way that they did. Imagine if they allowed him an off season. Yeah. So. Right.
Yeah, I'm chuckling as I'm reading some of these comments. You guys aren't beating the Rams 58-17. Like, Brad, I don't know what kind of crack you're smoking. Like, they have too many healthy players for that.
I do look at this game. I'm not going to give a score prediction, but I think that the Eagles will really beat them. I think this is going to be I think it's going to be a 3-score game.
Okay. All right.
So 58-17 is more like a 5-score game, and I don't think that. But
yeah, I don't see that score working out. But I do think the Eagles win handily, right? But 58-17 is a little.
If it went 58-something, something catastrophic happened to the Rams. Pretty much every play did not work. Is a couple pick sixes, a punt return touchdown, a kick return touchdown in there.
For a 58-17, Stafford got hurt.
No, I wouldn't necessarily
Kyron
say that
Williams.
because the defense is better than that.
Yeah.
The defense is better than that. I would agree. Like if they were going to score 40 plus,
There has to be some
which
special teams
that's
and
let
defensive
I
scores.
think that there's going to be there'd have to be a defensive touchdown.
See,
They have to be
get into that.
ridiculous with the field position. You know what I mean? Like I think that there's got to be a number of factors that would require the Eagles to score 40 points. I think that they score 30 plus. You know, and I really.
Realistically, if any of these teams left in the playoffs put up like 50 plus points against any of these defenses, minus Detroit, just because Detroit's got a they look good against Minnesota, but their defense has been very shaky the last month. If any of the remaining playoff teams put up a 50 spot on any of these defenses, there has to be defensive touchdowns into account. There has to be special teams plays into account because all the defenses left in the playoffs for the most part are top 12 defenses. Like a lot of these defenses have a hard time giving up 25, 30 points.
Yeah,
I think it will be a snow game, but I don't think the snow is going to play a factor. I think it's going to be light snow, like coating an inch. You know what I mean? Nothing like it was for the Detroit game a few years, the Snow Bowl. You know what I mean? So much different. Like that was, hey, let's dump 17 inches of snow on us in 3 hours time. That's not going to happen. It's going to maybe be an inch. It's going to look like playoff football though, because I feel that snow makes playoff football, but you're going to see like an inch or two. It's not going to be anything more than that. It's not going to be like we're up in New England where that Raiders game where the tuck rule came into play and things like that. There's going to be
a good snow game though.
Yeah. The Texans are not beating the Chiefs. I would agree with that, but it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be a close game. I got the Texans with the points, but I do not have the Chiefs. I don't have the Chiefs losing this game.
That's exactly where I'm at. I have the Texans to cover, the Chiefs to win outright.
Yeah, 9 points is too much for a playoff game.
Exactly.
They played each other recently, and it got out of hand very quickly.
I'm actually going for the Chiefs to cover, surprisingly, just because it's playoff football, and even though they haven't shown it yet, the Chiefs are that one team where I think if they really want to flip the switch, they will. And I think we've seen that even last year in the playoffs. Like, they were not playing well last year either, and all of a sudden we got to week 15, the Chiefs all of a sudden flipped that switch.
They played better down the stretch anyway.
Yeah, so that's why I might actually take the Chiefs with the points just because it's going to be cold. It's going to be
but again, it's like they have not played in just about a month. The better part of a month. It's been 3 weeks since they've played, and I don't care how much you practice.
That's something that they're used to, though, because they've had that number one seed so much now with Patrick Mahomes. Like, I think they're kind of used to that routine now, where it's like we get week 18 off. You might not play the second half of week 17, and I think they know that we're still going to get you your reps in practice. We're still going to prepare you for that first playoff game. It's just kind of second nature to them right now, where it's like we get the number one seed every year for the most part. We know how to handle having the extended time off.
Yeah, but they took the week off beforehand. They didn't dress at all or anything like that. And, it's like as much as he spoke about it on, no, we didn't throw that game, blah, 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 blah.
You threw it.
You threw it. You threw it. You didn't want to see that, Joe. That's that. And that's okay. That's all right. We get it. Hey, you were allowed to. You put yourself in a position to be able to do it. So that's okay.
No one's gonna yell at. No one's gonna be mad at you because your team would have did the same thing. Minnesota would have did the same thing if they had everything wrapped up. Like, they're not gonna suit people up in week 18 if they have the number one seed locked up and if there's nothing to play for. Like, you're sitting everybody.
Right. Yeah. No, that's why I laughed when there was, the coach of the Bengals were like, "Oh yeah, you got to investigate what." It's like, get out of here.
Everyone knew what the Chiefs were going to do when they clinched it in week 17. Like, everyone knew that there was not going to be a single player going out there
3 weeks prior, right? Like, every team does it every year. If you haven't locked up, you're not going to do that.
Yeah. So I don't know why Cincinnati's getting all mad about it, because Kansas City could have called up their entire practice squad to play. Like, everyone knew that once they had that number one seed clinch, it's like, well, no one's playing week 18, so I don't know why everyone's making a big deal about it.
Well, exactly. And not only that. I mean, I'm I've heard all this stuff before because the Giants did it to us when we let Washington win. When we
Yeah.
pulled out our quarterback and put in our backup just to see what we got. And next thing you know, interception, and like literally Washington wins the game, wins the division,
Yep.
and the Giants are still needing tissues about it.
Yeah.
They still are crying about it. So I remember that full force. The CEO of our network still cries about it on occasion.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So what? But Mac has this irrational thought of what the Giants are.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. It's never the Giants' fault.
Never. 0 times ever. Hope you're watching, Mac.
So yeah, and I know that he had the baby, and truth of the matter is that could also play a little bit of a part because you think of anything else like are you sleeping? Are you doing that? Like all of a sudden you had your third baby, and I understand it's the third kid, so it's not like your first one where it's everybody's shared duties. I'm sure the wife is taking care of all of this because she don't have to do anything else, to
Yeah.
make daddy a sandwich and watch the kids. That's what she does for a living. And make sure that the brother doesn't do any more TikToks. So
I mean,
that brother fell off the face of the earth, didn't he?
yeah, for good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't stop getting out of his own way. So,
You're right. There's probably an au pair in there. There's definitely an au pair in there, I'm sure. But all that being said, it's even still, that's a new child that you have. It's a little bit of a change of life. You never know. Like these guys are still human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So there's going to be a lot to say. I mean, we haven't heard much about the whole, hey, what's going on with Travis and Tyler?
yeah.
Like what's happening with them? I have no idea. It's like you haven't heard, or Taylor, not Tyler.
Yeah.
But I mean,
You heard it here first. Turns out Taylor will make you switch teams. No wonder she has so many albums.
tell me about it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I did see that one that the Cowboys are looking to bring back an old friend, maybe from the Eagles staff right now, Kellen Moore.
Yeah, he's on the list. Although it sounds like they haven't actually reached out. Sounds like that's actually more of a speculation.
No, they reached out today for the Phillies, but obviously they can't interview until Philly is now out of the playoffs.
Well, no, but I mean, it's been a conversation. So good to hear they finally reached out.
Yeah, Philly hasn't decided if they're going to block the Cowboys or not from doing it. I don't anticipate that they will, but they just can't obviously do anything until now after Philly's gone.
Yeah, so I kind of feel. Hey, who knows how she identifies? I don't know. I'm not.
She can identify anywhere she wants to when you make the kind of money she makes.
Come on, Joe. You're super excited if you go get Kellen Moore.
Oh, that's a shame, Chris. I didn't see that, but that's a bummer. I am a big fan of Bob Uecker.
Yeah,
I thought he passed away before.
No, he passed away like late last night, early this morning.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. 90 years young.
Crazy.
Time to watch Major League later.
Right? Yeah. For some reason, I thought he had passed away like a couple of years ago. Maybe it's just because he disappeared.
I mean, he still does everything Brewers. Like, he did even their playoff games yet this year. Like, that man was still fully invested into the Brewers, yet still announcing games.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the Ravens claimed DeAndre Johnson, who got cut by the Texans.
Didn't the Ravens get rid of him before that?
Yes.
Well, but he's ineligible to play in the postseason. But why would you do that?
Why would you cut him and then let him sign with Houston, and then after they cut him, why would you sign him back? Obviously, it didn't work out the first time in Baltimore.
Because now he saw the playbook. Why else would you do it?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you, I guess.
That's why he's ineligible.
He's ineligible to play at all, huh?
Yeah, it says ineligible for the playoffs.
because he
Off
was.
waivers 1 day after Texans released the wide receiver, according to the league's transaction. Johnson is ineligible to play in the postseason and won't officially join the Ravens until February
That's,
10th, 1 day after the Super Bowl.
that's because he was
However,
cut after week 18. That's why he's ineligible to play in the playoffs because he was cut after week 18. Like with Ezekiel Elliott, he was cut in week 17, and he signed with the Chargers ahead of week 18, which made him eligible. Johnson was cut after that week 18 game.
right, because you could still pick up players who have been free agencies before the end of the season.
As long as you pick them up prior to week 18, they're at playoff.
That's not true. That's absolutely not true. Because Chad Lewis scored a touchdown in the NFC Championship game way back in 2004.
Was he with the team though?
No, he was not.
If you're a free agent, like
Yeah,
if you're
a free
if you're
agent,
not on
and
the
they
roster, you can play.
right. Yeah,
but if you get cut from a team in week 18 and then you get picked up, you're not playoff eligible.
Correct. Yeah. If you ended the season, the regular season with the team and then get cut, you are, because that could be considered collusion.
That's why Johnson is not playoff eligible because he ended up playing week 18 with the Texans and then they just cut him after that before the playoffs.
So I think you can be in the building though. Yeah.
I don't even know. That's kind of why I'm wondering. Like if he was with Baltimore for what 6 or 7 weeks and then Baltimore got rid of him, and then Houston picked him up for I think the final 3 weeks of the year. I don't know if he's even allowed to go in Baltimore's building if he was just with Houston, because if Houston ends up beating Kansas City and they end up playing Baltimore, you have to wonder if having him in the building is what Paig said. If he knows that playbook, he would be able to literally give the Ravens everything they run on offense.
They're both going to visit an Applebee's and run into each other.
That would be actually
here's what it is. By claiming Johnson, Baltimore could receive a compensatory pick in the 2026 draft, depending on his contract and free agency. Johnson asked the Texans to release him. The 28-year-old was upset in the locker room after the wild card round over the Chargers due to his lack of playing time. Blah, blah, blah. Johnson suited up for the Ravens earlier this season, appearing in 4 games for Baltimore. And because that's what it is. So they picked him up so that if he signs a free agent contract, then he actually gets to they get a pick.
I mean, he will sign a free agent contract because I don't think Baltimore's going to re-sign him.
So,
I mean, if it's just having a chess piece to get an extra pick, it's a smart move. I'm not mad at it.
No.
Especially after he screwed them against playing the Eagles because he didn't want to go into the game.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So,
technically, what is 5th location in 13 months?
Yeah.
Good on you, man.
Yeah, the Panthers he was on, and then they got traded to the Ravens, and then got picked up by Houston.
Well, he was a Steeler for a minute.
He was a Steeler last year. He was a Steeler last year before they traded him to Carolina.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No. Talk about actively torpedoing your career.
Chase Claypool 2.0.
Hey, that's isn't that what the Steelers wide receivers do?
They do. Hey, that's actually what I was thinking. Is like all he's done is just short of throwing deuces up and running through an end zone during a game.
With no shirt on, with no shirt or shoulder pads on.
Exactly.
The only wide receiver that has been the only wide receiver in Pittsburgh that's never done that is Hines Ward.
Well, I mean, you go older. There's a lot of wide receivers.
Like the recent trend, like Chase Claypool did exactly what Deontay Johnson has done. I think it's only a matter of time before George Pickens is next when you look at some of the stuff that Pickens has done already.
I mean, he's not happy.
Yeah, so I mean, he could be the next one to kind of do what those two have done. And we're just like, I don't want to be here no more. Okay, well, we'll send you from a team that consistently wins games to the Giants. Go have fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that don't care about that. They want their stats. They want their touches. I don't know that they actually care about wins.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting one. The Detroit Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn's top choice to be a head coach of is the New York Jets.
He played there. Makes sense.
So, interesting how he covets that job and might be something that you need over there. somebody who actually wants the job.
That's the thing, right? Like you need someone that isn't like, well, there's only 32. I guess I'll take it. You need a guy that's like, I believe in the Jets. It's actually the only reason I thought Rex had a real shot, right? Do I think he ultimately gets it? No. But do I think he is one of the very few people that look at that job as I want that job? Absolutely.
Yeah. But I could also see Rex in Dallas. I could also see Rex in Chicago. And I think Chicago would be more iconic for him because of Buddy being there.
Sure.
And I know Buddy was only defensive coordinator,
Mhm.
but Buddy is still very highly regarded in Chicago. Like,
Well, I mean,
Buddy
Dallas-
Ryan was the only
Dallas-
place Buddy Ryan isn't highly regarded is Arizona.
Yeah.
Because he rewarded all of his players from the gangrene defense in Arizona when they were too old. So he was another one that's like, yeah, come play for me over here. We'll give you lots of money. Get away from Norman Brayman, and where you're not getting any money, and we'll pay you here. And it's
no. I mean, that's why I think Dallas could work. I mean, there's history there only because Rob was there.
Seeing Rex and Rob together on the same staff would be awesome.
Yeah, Rob jumped the shark, didn't he? Rob Ryan, is he even playing? Is he even coaching anywhere right now?
Not that I'm aware of.
I thought he coached last year, though. He might not be coaching this year, but I thought he was still coaching last year somewhere.
But I mean, if you had Rex in there, you have Rob as your DC. Like I could see that because Rex would help fill some of the gaps in Rob's, approach. Because it's not like Rob Ryan was terrible.
Rob Ryan is actually with the Raiders right now. He's a senior defensive assistant, so he's actually on the Raiders staff right now.
I didn't even realize that.
His last actual job was with the Ravens in 2021 as their linebacker coach, and then the last 3 years he's been the senior defensive assistant. So he's been working with the defensive coaches in the Raiders. Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising at all to see Rex and Rob be on the same staff together.
I could see that working out with the Bears too, though, because that Bears defense has some pieces he can play with.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to make him your defensive coordinator?
I would. I think Rex would.
Does that become more like? Have they ever been on the same staff together?
I believe they have. I was going to look up the year. That's what I'm going to look right now. I believe they have once or twice.
Yeah, because I there's a reason why you don't play with family or mess with family. You know what I mean? When you're dealing with coaching, because you don't want that to get into.
So Rob and Rex Ryan coached together with Buddy Ryan with the Cardinals in '95.
That's right on point with everything else I just said about that.
And then Rob Ryan was Rex Ryan's defensive coordinator at the Buffalo Bills when Rex Ryan was the coach of the Bills.
That's where I was thinking.
So they actually have coached together on several occasions.
All right. Well, maybe then. I just and what's he? It's he the assistant DC over in Chicago?
Who?
Rob.
Right now, he's with the Raiders.
Senior defensive, whatever he is, and with the Raiders. So he's basically.
He's just analyzing.
He oversees the defensive staff.
He's a consultant, so to speak. But I mean, all things being equal, the defense wasn't their problem.
Yeah,
like the defense looked good. So if he was giving insights that helped that defense be what it was, I mean, you figure that was a decently rated defense, especially when you think of the fact that they were on the field for 40 minutes a game.
Yeah. He's basically doing what a lot of these teams do now when they have like a young first-time head coach. Like they build their staff, and then they always seem to hire like a veteran offensive mind to be what they call the senior offensive analyst, where you basically say you're not coaching. You're literally overseeing all of our offensive coaches and just kind of giving them input of what they could change or input of what you think they could do differently. That's kind of what Antonio Pierce said. He's like, here's our defensive staff. You're going to oversee the entire defensive staff. You're not going to do anything. You're just going to give them input when we have our team meetings and just things like that. And like Bo said, the defense for the most part played well. So obviously whatever insight he was giving was working.
Helps to have Crosby on the roster also.
I think if those two teamed up in Chicago, though, I think that would be a great match just because both of them kind of have that Chicago mindset to them like Rob and Rex are kind of like when the Monsters of the Midway were a thing. Like they kind of give that city that vibe again. Because they're not going to be coaches that take crap from anybody. They will tell it how it is. They will not be afraid to hold players accountable. They will put people in their place real quick.
Well, we'll see. Obviously, this is, yeah, it's interesting how many teams are not running to grab a coach right away. That's in previous years there were coaches being hired during the playoffs.
And I think
And
the funny thing with that is, and you might not agree with this, but I think a lot of that has to do with I think a lot of these teams have the guy that they want to hire. Whether it's Ben Johnson, whether it's Cliff Kingsbury, whether it's Bobby Slowick in Houston. Like I think a lot of these teams have the guy they want to hire. They just know they can't interview that person until the team's season ends. And I think that's kind of why there's such a delay right now, because I think the Bears want Ben Johnson. And then you have like Aaron Glenn and the Jets. Like a lot of these teams are like, this is the guy we want. We just cannot interview this person until that team is eliminated. I think if Houston loses this weekend or if Detroit loses this weekend, you're going to see Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn and Bobby Slowick like interviewing for like all these openings like left and right next week.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. Is the teams that are left are the ones that absolutely have the assistants that these teams want to make head coaches.
Like Ben Johnson interviewed with the Bears last Sunday. Like he had his first interview with the Bears.
Yeah,
because that's ultimately the team that wants him the most. The Bears have made it a priority. It's like Ben Johnson or bust. But then there's 3 other teams that want Ben Johnson where they just can't interview him yet. And if they get eliminated, those 3 teams will line up for him next week.
Are we going to see the first like $20 million coach?
Chicago will not pay Ben Johnson that.
If Dion goes to Dallas,
Dion will get it.
That'll be the only way.
Dion will get it.
So, Rob, I don't hate the Kubiak idea. I wish we could let an OC have more than 1 year. Like, could we just get some continuity on this team? That would be cool. I also have heard Schottenheimer maybe.
Brian again?
Yeah, it may be an idea. So, I mean, at this point, I'm not sure that I care which one of these comes in, but could we see more than one season, right? Could we just stop changing our system every year? I think would be nice.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what, though?
It's hard to execute at a high level if it changes every year.
Eagles have done it.
Yeah, they have.
I mean, it seems like every year we get our offensive coordinator plucked and our defensive coordinator plucked.
Who was your OC last year? Steichen was 2 years ago before he took the Colts job. Who was the OC last year?
Last year wasn't that also a guy named Johnson? Was it like Ben Johnson?
It was Johnson. It was
Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson.
Yeah. Yep.
Joe, Dion said for the right price, he would be interested. So he has opened the door. He has basically put that ball in Jerry's corner. If he wants to pay him enough, he'll go. Right?
Yeah, I think
there's a $10 million buyout, so Jerry has to really want him.
Yeah, and that, like I said, we're getting closer. I think. Like I think that you're going to start seeing like high-paid coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And high-paid coordinators. Coordinators are going to start making coaches money, head coaching money, and that means the head coach is going to have to raise up. Yeah, and it might be Dallas that starts this trend, but I mean, the Eagles have also been really good. I mean, say what you want about the fact that their coaching seems like a carousel, but they've been very good about remaining good. With the coach, and the coach fitting in much better than we suspect. Doug Peterson was supposed to be the dumbest hire in all of football. And then he won a Super Bowl.
I mean,
but then he went on to be the dumbest hire in football.
Well, what you just said about like the offensive coordinators, what you just said about like these offensive coordinators starting to get head coach money. Like you look at the top 10 offensive coordinators in the NFL right now, they're all making at least $2 million.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson's making $2 million. Arthur Smith $2 million. Nathaniel Hackett 2.2. Kellen Moore is number 3 at $2.5 million. Can you name the guys who are getting paid the highest among offensive coordinators?
Look at Stat Guy bringing stats. What is going on today?
I'm gonna say San Francisco's
not even in the top 10.
Okay.
Because Kyle Shanahan still calls the play, so he doesn't get the full grasp as an offensive coordinator.
I got you.
One of them you should expect. The other one is one that nobody would expect.
Like the one from the Jaguars, and then would be the one I wouldn't suspect.
So the one that everyone would expect is Todd Monken from Baltimore. He's making $3 million. He is tied for the top offensive coordinator salary, along with Mike Kafka. Is getting
from the
paid,
Giants,
getting paid $3 million to be the OC.
Talk about getting fleeced for no production at all. It is kind of interesting though. Kafka is also going to be one of the head coaches for the Senior Bowl. So, and just about every team has interviewed him for that head coaching role. So, I mean,
that leads me to believe maybe he's like a Josh McCown, where he may not have been a great player, but maybe he does know a thing or two about something when it comes to like coaching and like developing a quarterback or developing an offense.
He knows people anyway. Because he gets a lot of phone calls. So he has a lot of friends around the league, if nothing else.
And then Vic Fangio is the highest paid defensive coordinator in the NFL at $4.5 million.
No, that makes sense.
And he will never go anywhere else. He said this was going to be his last job. He's going to do this. He lives kind of up the street here, like an hour up the street.
Yep.
But
it's Mike Zimmer checking in at number 2 at $4 million, and then Steve Spagnuolo at number 3 at $3.5 million. And like all those guys have something. All three of those guys have something in common. They're all 65-year-old defensive coordinators who have already had a crack at head coach, and a couple of them have succeeded. But now it's just like, we're 65. We don't need another head coaching job. We'll just stay here and take a $4 million check every year to call plays on defense.
Yeah.
So name those three again. Vic Fangio.
Vic Fangio's number 1 at $4.5 million.
Right.
Mike Zimmer's number 2 at $4 million. And then Steve.
Has he won a ring?
He did not win a ring. No, Zimmer did not win a ring. No.
And neither has Fangio, right? Not as a coordinator. He may have won a ring.
He was in the Super Bowl with Lovie Smith as a coordinator, but they didn't win. And then Steve Spagnuolo is $3.5 million as the number 3 defensive.
And he has won rings.
He's got 3 rings with the Chiefs.
Right. Okay, so it's like that's interesting. Again, like I feel like you would pay for those rings. You got to pay for those.
Brian Flores, he's I think 6th or 7th on the list, making $1.8 million. So like even like 5 years ago, if you paid a coordinator $1 million, you'd be considered like out of the norm. Now you're seeing a lot of these coordinators starting getting $1, $2, $3 million because they know that's how you keep them here to prevent them from possibly leaving. Is you got
and the highest coordinator, like I said, the highest coordinator is Vic Fangio across the board. At $4.5 million.
He's making more than I think 7 NFL coaches at $4.5 million.
Yeah, so it's like there's something to be said for that, because we had everybody who played Vic Fangio's system, and they weren't doing it right. Mm-hmm. So now we got the original.
Because your defensive coordinator last year, that Sean Desai, was a Vic Fangio assistant in Chicago.
And so was what's his face out in Arizona?
Gannon.
Vic Fangio was part of Vic Fangio's system. So, and he kind of did it okay. And then you got Schwartz. Schwartz is the one who won the Super Bowl, but also I think part of the Vic Fangio system. Like it's very, very similar. I think that Schwartz added his own style to it.
Yeah, he did more defensive backs than what Fangio typically does, but it was still the same kind of base front 7 concepts.
Yep.
Right. So, I don't know. This is part of I think it's part of the trend that's going to continue, and you're going to start seeing these offensive coordinators. That's why I understand, like, does Cliff Kingsbury, who just got fired as a head coach, went back to being a coordinator, is he going to try again? I feel like, yes, you try twice, maybe 3 times.
I think he could stay in Washington 1 more year because he's only getting paid like $1.5 million this year to be a coordinator. I could see him getting a bump maybe to that $2.5, $3 million range next year to work with Jaden Daniels 1 more year. And then if Daniels shows growth and if Washington continues to trend in the direction they're going, then he'll throw his name in there again and get another job. I just don't see Kingsbury getting hired this year, just because, like you said, it's 2 years removed from what he did in Arizona. He worked in college with Caleb Williams last year. This year he's with Arizona. I think he's going to stay one more year with Washington to try to build up that resume a little bit more. He'll get paid to stay in Washington if he wants to stay there. Like, that new ownership group will be like, if you want to stay here, we can take you from $1.5 to $3.5 million to call plays one more year, and then you can try your luck again.
Yeah, because there are other franchises that they own suck, like the Sixers.
Yeah. But I think college football is a big reason why you're going to start to see a lot of these high-paid NFL head coaches too. Because you just look at some of the money that these college head coaches are making now, and usually the ones that are getting paid $10 to $12 million a year are always the one that are in it at the end of the year. Minus Marcus Freeman this year, who's only getting paid like $4 million.
So I tell you, we will see over the next couple of weeks how this all turns out.
That we will.
Tomorrow we do our picks.
That's right. Do our picks.
Are we throwing college football in there tomorrow too, since the national championship game is Monday, or are we until Monday to do that?
Yeah, I might as well wait till Monday, I guess. Day of. Yeah, why not?
It'll give us. We'll give them their 3 minutes that they're worth. I can't stand either one of these teams.
I usually can. It's before my dad passed away. He was a big Notre Dame fan, so I'm just kind of pulling for Notre Dame this year because he hasn't been able to see them play in the championship for a long time. Obviously, He's not physically watching them play now, but
yeah,
it be's what it is.
Yep.
So I hate Notre Dame more than I hate Ohio State, but they're very close. So
yeah, I don't have a horse in the race. I don't care either way. I'm not a fan of either team.
My team sucks in college football.
I just hope that it's a good game, right? Like that's my hope. My Huskies had no shot at it this year. I mean, I knew they had no shot at it before the season started. Like, you lose your whole coaching staff and you have 2 returning guys because 22 of your starters transfer.
Right.
The fact they made a bowl game was amazing. So
I get it. And that's what then they call that the day.
They sure do. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Appreciate all of you in the comments section. And of course, if you are on Roku, stay tuned for the next hour. Otherwise, we will see you all tomorrow. And enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Have a good one.
Later, guys.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows, giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live